Bentrovati amici della lingua italiana, amici del mio canale. So welcome back, friends of the Italian language and friends of my channel Ad Maiora. So today we're going to talk about verbs. We know that verbs, I verbi, are always, or anyway, most of the times, the toughest part of learning a language, a foreign language. So the tense we're going to talk about today is a very common tense. So probably the most used, the most common one when we talk about the past. In fact, I'm talking about Passato Prossimo. Passato Prossimo. Passato means past, obviously. Prossimo has two different meanings in Italian. It may mean next, but this is not the case, or it may also mean not far from something. And this is the case because when we use a passato prossimo, we talk about a near past. So something that is gone and it's in the past, but not a very far away past. It is something quite recent. Okay, it is important to make this distinction because we have two different tenses that we use while talking about the past in Italian. One is this one and the other one is passato remoto. Remoto means that it is remote, it is something, okay, very old and a lot of time has passed, okay, since that action of that moment. So this is the distinction basically, okay. You can choose one or the other depending on when basically the action happened. If it is a near action, then you use passato prossimo. If it is a faraway action, then you use passato remoto. Now, it is also true that the other tense that obviously we will see in the future is quite formal. You use it while writing, you find it in novels, for example. You rarely use it while talking. Okay, while talking we often don't make the distinction between the near past or not so near past. We always use this one here. So when you have learned this, you basically can talk using this for every single past action. Unfortunately, because actually when we eliminate something, the language, every language becomes a little bit poorer. Many times today the passato remoto, so the other one, the most formal one, is substituted with passato prossimo, by passato prossimo, so we use this one also while writing. Okay, this is not completely correct, but mostly accepted nowadays. There are regions where the other one is still used, especially in the south of Italy, but for example in the north of Italy it is really rare to hear something using or expressing an action using passato remoto. You always find this tense here. I always use this tense here because I live in Treviso, it is absolutely in the north, and we always use this tense here while talking, okay, every day. So this is a very common tense. How can we form it? Warning, pay attention, we'll go back to that again, but remember this thing I'm going to tell you, that the structure is quite similar to the present perfect in English. I'm talking in English now, so it could be easy to make a comparison. But pay attention because we can compare the way we form them, but they are used in a completely different way. So don't try not to be misled by the English use of that specific tense, which is something completely different from this one. Why is it similar to the present perfect in English? Because it is formed by the auxiliary verb essere o avere, so to be or to have. If you don't remember these verbs, auxiliary verbs, just go back, okay, to my previous lessons, this playlist obviously about the Italian language, and you find the complete conjugation about the auxiliary verbs. So, auxiliary verb and participio passato. Participio passato is the past participle. Now we see how to form it. So, auxiliary verb, verbo ausiliare, essere o avere, e participio passato. Well, just quickly, just to be sure that you remember the two verbs here, essere and avere. Again, go back if you don't remember them precisely, because I have talked about the auxiliary verbs and every other verb in the present form, so no problem about that. Anyway, just quickly, verbo essere, io sono, tu sei, egli è, noi siamo, voi siete, essi sono. The verb to have, avere, io ho, tu hai, egli ha, noi abbiamo, voi avete, essi hanno. Remember the H, okay? I'm sure you already know the verbi ausiliari essere e avere. If you're studying the past form, probably you already know the present form, at least of the two main verbs here. Participio passato. Now, this requires a few minutes. Another element I've talked about a lot in my previous lesson is the fact that the verbs, okay, are divided into three groups in Italian. These three groups here, they are le tre coniugazioni, which means conjugations, okay? And they depend on the final part, the suffix, the final part of the verb in the infinitive form, right? So the first group, the first conjugation, prima coniugazione, okay, is formed by verbs whose infinitive form ends up in are, okay? So are are the final three letters of the infinitive form of this first group, the prima coniugazione. Seconda coniugazione, the last three letters are ere. Third one, okay, terza coniugazione, last final three letters of the infinitive form, ire. We have talked about that a lot, and we have a specific video, specific lesson for each one of them in the present form, and also quite a few irregular verbs. So again, if you don't remember this conjugations or how we form the present tense or whatever, you can go back to my previous lessons on this playlist here. Now we are going to see that these three conjugations form the past participle, participio passato, in a different way. So the first conjugation, last part of the infinitive, are, okay, changes, and the root of the verb remains the same, but the suffix changes, okay, it's not are anymore, it is ato. Example, the verb mangiare, to eat, okay, mangiare, you see this is the infinitive form, okay, I eliminate are, which is the final suffix of the first conjugation, I eliminate it and I put ato, mangiato, eaten, okay, this is the past participle. So how can I form the all passato prossimo of this verb, mangiare? I ate, basically. Io ho, which is obviously the auxiliary verb avere, then we'll see when we have to pick one or the other, in this case is avere, okay, io ho mangiato, Second conjugation, okay, I eliminate ere, okay, and I put uto. Example, I think the easiest example here is the verb avere, okay, which is also the auxiliary verb we have just talked about. Infinitive form is avere, obviously. I eliminate ere. The root is av, okay, and I add the suffix uto, avuto. Ho avuto. Participio passato prossimo. Final group, terza coniugazione, conjugation number 3. Okay, final letters are ire, as in dormire, sleep, okay. I eliminate ire and I add ito, ito. So I slept, io, ho, verb to have, avere, dormito, dormito. Mangiato, avuto, dormito. The first and the third one are quite easy because they keep the same vowel, okay? They have in the infinitive form. You see here it's a, and here it is e. The only one which is a little bit stranger and you have to pay attention here is the second one, because you change the e, the e in, okay, it's obviously an English spelling, in Italian it is ere, and you change it into u, uto. This is quite, it's quite appalling, but it's like that. So, when are we supposed to use the auxiliary verb avere and when the auxiliary verb essere? It is quite easy actually, because it is always, you should think it like that. It is the easiest way to remember that. You always use avere, so the verb to have, again, as in English, as in the present perfect, but it is another use of the verb. Similar, we form it in a similar way, we use it in a different way. So, always avere, but there are three exceptions, three situations while you use essere. The first one is for verbs of movement, okay? When you express a movement, in that case you use the verb to be, the verb essere. Example here, sono andato al cinema. Okay, I went to the cinema. Now this is the verb andare, to go, okay? First conjugation here, first group here, it is an irregular verb, but in this case the past participle is perfectly regular, so it is andato, absolutely regular. We have to pay attention to the auxiliary verb because it is not io ho andato, it is io sono andato, because there is a movement. Okay, I change my position. Again, second situation in which we use the auxiliary verb to be instead of to have. With verbs of changing state. Okay, when I express something that is changing. Okay, the state of the subject. Example here, sono diventato grande. This is the verb diventare. It means to become. Obviously, this is the perfect verb to indicate a change of state. Okay, to become, it means that I start in a way and then I end up in another way. Okay, it's not. Grande means big, but diventare grande means to grow up. Okay, so the sentence here means I grew up, basically. It's not io ho diventato grande, but it is io sono diventato grande, tu sei diventata grande, etc., etc. Third and last situation in which we use the verb to be instead of the verb to have is with reflexive verbs. Okay, reflexive verbs, like in this case here, fermarsi, it means to stop, okay. I know that in English it isn't a reflexive verb, I know that, I'm aware, but in Italian it is, okay. And so when you have a reflexive verb, you have to pay attention and use the verb to be. It's not si ha fermato, wrong, it is si è fermato, third person singular of the verb to be. Another aspect very important you have to remember when you are in this situation here. So when you don't use verbo ausiliare avere, but you use verbo ausiliare essere. So in these three situations. In this situation, the ending, so the last part, okay, of the past participle, okay, so this part here of the verb, changes to reflect the gender and the number of the subject. What does it mean? Don't worry, it's easier done than said. So basically, when you have a verb to be, you have to pay attention because you have to change, okay, the past participle according to the subject. Example, the verb, okay, to go, andare. Marco is a guy, he's a man anyway, so it is singular and masculine, okay? È andato, to, final O, as you can see here. So the form we have learned basically, because we always learn the forms using, okay, repeating, learning the masculine and singular form. But if the subject is feminine, okay, as in this case, Maria, not Marco anymore, it is Maria, she's obviously a girl or a woman anyway, you have to change the past participle because it is feminine. It's not masculine anymore. It is always singular, but it is feminine. So in this case, you have no final O, you have a final A, which is characteristic of the feminine singular. Also in most adjectives, we have already said, okay, that in the past that it's not an absolute rule. We will talk about adjectives. This is a very long and complicated topic, but most of the times the characteristic ending of the singular masculine is O and singular feminine is A, and so also the past participle changes as an adjective in this case, because when you have the verb to be, basically you are referring to the subject, okay? You are giving sort of a characteristic of the subject, so the past participle, even if it is a verb, it behaves like an adjective. So, Marco è andato, but Maria è andata. Again, this is about the gender. Now we talk about the number too. Marco and Maria, so both of them, okay, I've got a masculine and a feminine, doesn't matter, sono andati, i. This is used for masculine and plural, but pay attention. This is well, it could be, there are a lot of discussions about that, about the fact that language doesn't respect women, because if there is a group and they're all women, there is just one single man amongst them, then you still have to use this one here, so the masculine plural. You can use the feminine plural only if there are just women, no man, not every, even not a single man, okay? If you have just one man, one single man, you have to use the masculine plural. Okay, this is a bit misogynist, but that's the way it is. So, Marco and Maria, it could be also Marco and Luca, they are two men, okay, sono andati, but also Marco and Maria, even if he is a man and she is a woman, the gender that prevails, okay, from the grammar point of view is the masculine, and so it is, the ending is E. But if we have only women, like in this case here, Maria and Laura, they are two women or two girls, sono andate, e, because it's plural, but it is feminine in this case. So if you have the auxiliary verb to have, so in this situation, verbs of movement, change in state, or reflexive verbs, in this case, you have to pay attention and you have to change the ending of the participio passato, of the past participle, in order to be according to the subject, basically, in gender and number. This is all very easy, isn't it? By the way, very quick reminder of what I told you before. Why you probably are English speakers, or anyway use English as a second, third, fourth language, so you are listening to me and you're probably understanding what I'm saying, you are used to use this specific form, okay, the specific similar form, which is the present perfect, in a very specific situation. So when the action isn't finished yet, or eventually it is finished, but I am expressing a present consequence. This is how we use the present perfect, the correct way to use the present perfect in English. This is completely different from Passato Prossimo Italiano, so don't be tricked, okay? Don't translate one into the other according to the way you form it, okay, from a grammar point of view, because the context is completely different. In this case, the action is finished. It is finished, but it is near. While in the present perfect, in English, the action isn't finished or the consequences are present, and it doesn't matter whether the action is near or not. Okay? It doesn't matter. So pay attention, because this form here, this passato prossimo here, can be translated into English both with a past simple or a present perfect. Okay? So pay attention here. Last thing we had to say, yes, as usual, there are irregular verbs, of course, and there are irregular past participles. Obviously, there are hundreds of them, but there are a few which are very, very common, and as usual, when I talk about verbs, I've done the same when we were talking about the present tense, if you remember. I give you just a handful of examples, to I don't know, to remember maybe the most common verbs that you can actually happen to use in your everyday life. Examples, so irregular verbs, irregular in the past participle, so obviously the all passato prossimo becomes irregular too. The verb fare, to make or to do, okay, it translates both cases, make and do. It's not fatto, okay, but it is fatto, fatto with a double T, with a double T. So you remember, when you have a double consonant, it is longer, okay? It is also, as I always say, you know right already, it is also stronger, but especially it is longer, twice as a single consonant. So it's not fatto, which means fate, destiny in Italian, but it is fatto, fatto, fatto. Can you hear that? The difference? Fatto, fatto. There's a huge difference because they mean two different things. So I did or I made something is ho fatto. Io ho fatto, tu hai fatto, egli ha fatto, and so on. Again, mettere, to put, okay, mettere, to put. The past participle is completely irregular. It's not mettuto or something. It is messo, messo. Io ho messo il libro nell'armadio. I put, or have put, depending on the context, the book, okay, into the cupboard. Ok, ho messo il libro nell'armadio. Again, venire, to come, to come. It's venuto, venuto. This is a bit strange because we have a verb with the final, with the ending ire, which should be is, the third group, the third conjugation, but the way they form the past participle is the same as the second group. So, in this case, it is a verb of movement. Absolutely, to come, okay? And so I have to use the auxiliary verb to be, to be. And I will say, in this case, io sono venuta a trovarti, okay? I have come to visit you. I have come. I haven't said, right here, io sono venuto. I said, io sono venuta. Why? Because I'm a woman. Okay? So I have to change the final ending matching my gender. Okay? If I was talking about a man, I don't know, my husband, mio marito è venuto. But io sono venuta. Because he is a man, I'm a woman. Okay? If I was talking about my husband and me together, that would be this third situation here. Noi siamo venuti. If I were talking about my friends, girlfriends, and me, noi siamo venute. So this is an example of what we said before. It's not just irregular, the verb, it is irregular obviously, but it is also a verb that requires auxiliary verb to be, and so you have to pay attention to the ending of the past participle. Again, prendere, to take. Past participle, preso. So, lui ha preso il raffreddore. Because the translation could be to take or to catch also. And in this case the translation is he caught a cold. Okay? Egli ha preso un raffreddore, a cold. Then, wow, we have the auxiliary verb to be here. Yes, it is absolutely irregular. It is irregular in every single tense, actually, and also the past participle, because the past participle of the verb to be, of the verb essere, is stato. And it requires itself, so the auxiliary verb to be. Okay, so io sono stata. Lui, egli, man, è stato. Noi siamo stati. If we were just women, noi siamo state. So stato is the past participle. It's a word that means also other things, like for example, country or state. Okay? And also can be used also in other situations, but in this case it is absolutely the past participle of the verb essere. Again, leggere, to read. Past participle, ok, participio passato, letto. Io ho letto. I know the word also means bed, but it is something completely different, okay? So, okay. They just have the same form, but they're two different things. Io ho letto un buon libro. Io ho letto un buon libro. Okay, I read a good book. Then again, rimanere, to stay. Okay, to stay in a place. Past participle, rimasto. Now, this is a verb that requires the auxiliary verb to be, even if it isn't a verb of movement, it is an absence of movement. Obviously, these are rules that are absolute and general, but there are also some exceptions. So other verbs sometimes require the verb to be, and we have to learn them. This is one of these cases. Quindi, egli è rimasto. Again, if I was talking about myself, io sono rimasta. Again, it's feminine. Only with the auxiliary verb to be. Remember that when the auxiliary verb is to have, you don't have to change anything, okay, in the past parts. To open, aprire. Past participle, aperto. You find it, for example, on the doors of the shops, okay, open, it is aperto, while closed is chiuso, aperto, chiuso. Also in this case, auxiliary verb to be, okay, because it's in a way a changing of state, aprire, chiudere, okay, I change the state of the things, of the element I'm talking about, and this is why the auxiliary verb is to be, also in this case. Then, dire, to say or to talk sometimes. Past participle detto. Ho detto una bugia. Okay, I said a lie. Then again, scegliere, to choose or pick. Okay, to pick something or to choose something. Scegliere. I know the pronunciation isn't very easy here because you have the GL sound. You remember my video about pronunciation, about phonetics. The pronunciation is when you have a GL sound and then a E. So scegliere becomes scelto. Scelto. Io ho scelto. I have chosen or I chose. Scrivere. To write. Scritto. Scritto. Ho scritto una lettera. I wrote a letter. Ho scritto una email. Ho scritto un messaggio. I wrote a text. This is something we do a lot today. Again, I always say that, I repeat it once again, when I translate verbal forms for you, I usually express the subject, also the pronoun io ho letto, tu hai scritto, and so on. Remember that obviously I'm doing this because this is a grammar lesson, so it's important that I remember also the subject and I specify the person of the verb. But when we use the language, okay, in our everyday life, we rarely express the subject when it is the pronoun. We just say ho letto, hai scelto, ha dormito, siamo andati. We don't really need to express the subject. It is there, but it is implicit. It is implicit. The conjugation, the person of the verb already tells us which subject we have. We don't need to repeat it when it is a pronoun, obviously. Last but not least for today, the verb to see, vedere, vedere. The past participle, participio passato, is visto, visto. Ho visto. Ho visto il mio amico per strada. I saw my friend on the street. Ho visto. So these are, well, wait a moment, I move away from here so you can eventually take a screenshot or, I don't know, pause the video to take notes or whatever you need. But I hope that this explanation is quite clear. It's obviously, well, explaining verbs in short, you may say that they are not short, but quite short videos on YouTube is not easy. I would require 3 hours to explain every possible situation, exception, whatever. But I think that this is quite effective to give you the general idea of how I use this verb and when and how I form it. So, if you have any questions, just ask away. I am so very proud of this playlist, and I'm so very proud of you and thankful because I am receiving an amazing feedback. And I wasn't sure at first because I started teaching foreign languages. I mean, I'm Italian, so German, English, and literatures. And that was a sort of a, I don't know, it was a sort of something I tried, but it was a sort of a bet. And your reaction has been amazing and very motivating. So thank you so very much for following me. I will make more videos about the Italian language. We will also make videos about, this is proper grammar, okay, but maybe about some situations, vocabulary, and I will start talking Italian with you, to you, okay, so you can listen and repeat. So, grazie mille per la vostra attenzione e per il vostro supporto. Thank you so very much for your attention and for your support, okay? And I hope to see you very soon again with another Italian lesson. I hope to see you very soon. Spero di vedervi molto presto per un'altra lezione di italiano. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do it and leave me a like if you think that this video is helpful. Thank you very much, grazie infinite, grazie di cuore e a presto. Un bacio!